Jeremiah 31, 3 through 4, was written to a discouraged and captive people. The prophet reminded them that in the past the Lord had appeared to them and said, "I have loved you with an everlasting love." Despite all their unfaithfulness, God had not stopped loving them, nor will he stop loving you. God then said, "I have drawn you with loving kindness." As far as I know, Christianity is the only religion that is not built on people being required to do something, such as living by a certain set of rules, believing the correct things, giving up certain things or behaviors before they will be acceptable. God loved us before we were even aware of him in an attempt to draw us to him. He took the initiative. God then promised, "I will build you up, and you will be rebuilt." With that, I believe he was speaking to individuals and to humanity as a whole. In essence, he was saying that no matter how far someone has fallen, his everlasting love is at work, drawing them back to him, and he will rebuild their lives. I also believe that God was speaking to the Hebrew people as a group, telling them that their period of trouble was only temporary, that the nation and its righteousness would one day be restored. I believe we can hope that for our nation too. God's everlasting love is still at work in the world today, despite all the evidence to the contrary. What does that love do? It is continuing to draw people to him who have never known him, and to draw people back to him who have drifted away. What does God's love do? It is continuing to sustain churches, as he promised, and his love will build his church up again. How can we participate in that? Psalm 17, 6 through 7 encourages us to continue to call on the Lord. The author wrote, "I call on you, O God, and you will answer me. Give ear to me and hear my prayer." The author knew, probably by experience, that the Lord answers prayer. The author also prayed, "Show the wonder of your great love, you who save by your right hand those who take refuge in you from their foes." In biblical times, the right hand was seen as the hand of honor. By saying that it is by God's right hand that he saves, the author is saying that God honors those who take refuge in him. What else does God's love do? It forgives. It restores. Remember, after Jesus was arrested, Peter denied 3 times that he knew him. Matthew 26:75 tells us that when Peter realized he had fulfilled the prophecy Jesus had made about him, Peter then went outside and wept bitterly. But Jesus' love did not leave Peter outside in grief and shame. After Jesus had risen from the grave, he appeared to his disciples a number of times. John 21, 13 to 17 tells us of one of those encounters. It says, "Jesus came, took the bread and gave it to the disciples, and did the same with the fish." This was now the 3rd time Jesus appeared to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you truly love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," he said, "you know that I love you." Let me point out 2 different Greek words that are used in this conversation, which are both translated love. The first is agape, and it means an unconditional love. It is always used to describe how God feels about us. By unconditional, I mean that agape love does not depend on the worthiness of the person loved, and it implies a commitment of always seeking the best for the other. Jesus' question then becomes, "Peter, do you love me without reservation and with greater spiritual devotion than any of these others?" That's an interesting question to ask of someone who just a few days before had denied knowing him. The second Greek word that is translated love in this conversation is philo. It implies friendship based on how likable the other person is. Peter's response to Jesus' question then becomes, "Yes, Lord, you know that I consider you to be my friend." Listen to the two words. Jesus asked, Simon, do you agape me? Peter answered, Yes, Lord, you know that I follow you. I doubt that Peter misunderstood what Jesus was asking. I don't know what Peter was feeling that day, but I think it's possible that he was stuck in feelings of shame and unworthiness. Jesus' response to Peter's answer was, Feed my lambs. That suggests to me that instead of rejecting Peter, he loved Peter enough to still want him as his disciple. I think Jesus saw in Peter a potential for being of great use in God's kingdom, despite that weakness that he had when Jesus was arrested. One more time, we have Jesus' question, Do you agape me? And Peter's answer, Yes, I follow you. Then Jesus changed the question. In essence, he asked Simon, Are you really my friend? Verse 17 says, Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, Do you follow me? I don't think Peter was hurt because Jesus asked 3 times about his love. I think Peter was hurt because the third time, Jesus no longer asked if Peter sincerely and unconditionally loved him. But again, Jesus' response was one of love and reconciliation. He told Peter, Feed my sheep. Because of Christ's forgiving and restoring love, Peter became one of Christianity's greatest representatives. 1 John 4:15 through 17 tells us more about what God's love does. It reads, If anyone acknowledges that Jesus is the Son of God, God lives in him, and he in God. And so we know and we rely on the love God has for us. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in him. In this way, love is made complete among us, so that we will have confidence on the day of judgment, because in this world we are like him. 1 Corinthians 13 beautifully expands on the meaning of agape love. It reads, If I speak in the tongues of men and angels, but have not love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. Remember, all of these, it's talking about agape love, the unconditional love, the love that God has for us. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish ways behind me. Now we see but a poor reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know, even as I am fully known. And now these 3 remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Do you truly love Jesus? Is he more to you than just a friend? Are you able to love all those around you as Christ loves you? Consider 1 Corinthians 13 as a suggestion of how you might tend Jesus' sheep. Amen.